2008. Do you remember back then we used to think politics was boring? Those were the days. And now, I worry about everything. I don't know what to worry about first. Never mind the government. It's the sodding banks. They terrify me. And it's not even them. It's the companies, the brands, the corporations. They treat us like algorithms while they go around poisoning the air and the temperature and the brain. And don't even start me on ISIS. Oh, now we've got America. Never thought I'd be scared of America in a million years, but we've got fake news and false facts. I don't even know what's true anymore. What sort of world are we in?
Did you know you can live forever?
Term for President Donald Trump.
The president you get, you deserve.
Brooke has also devoted £1 million to the fight against monkey flu. The epidemic continues to rage with an estimated 1,200 deaths.
It's this bad now. What's it going to be like for you? 30 years time, 10 years?
What's up, everybody, and a very warm welcome to TSP TV, and welcome to the thrift store. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode that we are going to be decoding a little bit of fiction. And the fiction we are going to be looking at today is the BBC One miniseries, Years and Years, which hopefully the couple of little minutes that you just watched before I opened this episode did whet your appetite a little bit and give you a little bit of intrigue, is to see exactly what is going on in this particular show that we are going to be decoding the fiction in today. Now, excuse me, I've got a burp. I just had a glass of water before recording, but Baby P, Becky Pamplin, beloved thrift fan member, does like burps, so there's a couple of little silent ones for you to count there, if or not silent burps count towards the burp count. But I do realise also, and you notice that the BBC's website is red, that I may indeed be waving a red rag to the bull of the BBC copyright strikes. It may or may not descend upon me as a result of trying to upload this video, because I do have a little bit of clips and snippets in between me talking to highlight some of the more sort of interesting, maybe disturbing pieces of content within this mini-series. Now, in recent years, I really haven't paid an awful lot of attention to a lot of mainstream entertainment, be it TV shows or movies, with a very, very few exception. Like things like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, probably the only two recent shows that I have really had a real interest or passion for to want to go out of my way to watch, I say. But there has been a few interesting other shows that have popped up in about over the last sort of decade and or so that have caught my interest, that we may delve into at some point in time. If or not you guys do enjoy the fiction decoded videos, is up to you, but they are certainly something that I do enjoy making, because they're something that I have had a lot of fun and interest in over the years watching myself. But Years and Years for me is one of the most revelating, is that a word? But one of the more eye-opening pieces of fiction that has come out in a long time, and certainly within the last 12 months, and in particular in recent weeks and months, since the dawn of COVIDian era. I lost my day job. I now have 50 or 60 hours a week to sort of fill where I'm no longer employed. So how I fill those 50 or 60 hours a day is becoming a little bit difficult now that the time of year has changed and the fall and winter months are descending, and the summer days are almost long and forgotten. But during the summer I was out and about for much longer than 50 or 60 hours a week, and getting plenty of fresh air, vitamin D and natural dopamine from the sun, while interacting with nature down at the lake and the beaches, as well as frolicking around half naked with some of my friends that I found over the summer. But now the darker months are here, and it is getting colder, and the nights are getting longer and the days shorter. I have found myself trying to find or pass away as many of those hours as I can by possibly watching a little bit of entertainment. Now I've kind of done and dusted all my go-to familiar regular programs in sort of movies through this period of time, so I have been delving particularly into some of the more recent titles that have been out, and in particular because of the lockdown, many people like myself have been told to stay at home, self-isolate, stay away from your loved ones, don't go to work, don't go out unless it is essential, stay 6 feet away from everybody else, and just really, live in your own little bubble of whatever you fill that bubble with. And many people are filling that bubble a little bit like myself with things like Netflix or Hulu or Amazon, and are streaming and binging hours and hours and hours of entertainment that is in fact mind control material, and is filled with an awful lot of subliminal messaging, as well as predictive and programmatic messaging. And by that I mean sometimes we mimic what we see in the movies, and we've talked about memetics and mind control and MK Ultra and Monarch program, and all of this stuff is incorporated within mainstream entertainment, be it movies, music or TV shows. So years and years before I go on and bore you already, and you're already forgetting those little clips that you did see at the start of the show, and fingers crossed we don't get copyrighted for any of this, and maybe we should try a little bit of a disclaimer and let you know that the algorithm, not you watching, you probably the viewer doesn't care, but the algorithm and maybe the BBC might care. So if you are listening, Mr. Algorithm and the BBC, TSP TV is a non-profit organization. In fact, it's not even an organization, it's just me, a lonely stoner in my basement making videos for about 20 or 30 people that actually take the time to bother to watch them. And by no means am I out the way to profit on what is essentially publicly funded productions of the BBC, because TV licensing is how the BBC is funded and operated. And if you live in the United Kingdom, which I did at one time, and I did pay my TV license, because you're not allowed to own a TV in the United Kingdom without a license, and it is the licensing money that you have to pay each and every year that the BBC uses to make its programs. So as a former TV license payer, and as I got a mum that still lives in the UK and pays for her TV license, I'm kind of considering that I do partly own some of this production value that I am using for purely educational and informative purposes as part of the Freedom of Information Act. So hopefully that will appease the algorithm and copyright strikes. I am using this purely for information and educational purposes, and all rights belong to the original producer, BBC One, although my mum's taxpayer TV license money did contribute to part of it. So there you go, that's how it works in my opinion. If or not the copyright strikes allow us to get away with this, who knows. But anyway, further ado guys, my sorry for digressing there and going off on a little bit of a tangent about the BBC and TV licenses. But anyway, Years and Years is a fascinating show in my opinion. I actually binge watched all 6 hours as of this mini series in one sitting overnight just the other day, and yesterday I did start to put together a few of the clips that we will be seeing throughout the duration of this episode. But Years and Years, a little bit like Utopia, is one of the most eye-opening pieces of fiction during COVIDian eras, although this come out in 2019, just before we did go on the lockdown. What it does show in it is a little bit disturbing and almost relevant to today. And again, a little bit like Utopia, which was the reboot of a 2013 other British TV series of the same name that was out on Channel 4, which depicts a large pharmaceutical, big tech, militarized industrial complex type organization that creates a fake pandemic in order to administer a vaccine that will not cure the fake virus, but will in fact render humanity unable to reproduce for the next 30 years. And why they particularly chose the quarantine lockdown period of COVIDian era to release or reboot that particular piece of fiction is very, very sort of evident. It does enforce a little bit of fear and does maybe give some programatics to the audience. But Years and Years is very, very interesting because it takes place over the next 10 years, and it starts in 2019, and it follows the course of a story, the story of a family over the course of the next 10 years, leading us right up to good old 2030. And those of you that do watch and pay attention should know all about the United Nations and their Agenda 2030, and actually do believe that the COVIDian era is the dawn of the transcendence into the one world order, and that 2030 dystopia that has been spoken of within conspiracy circles for many, many years, and now is becoming very, 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 very real. But there are some very, very interesting characters and plot lines and goings on in Years and Years over the next, or what they depict is going to happen over the next 10 years. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on here on their little web page where you can look at the episodes, the clips, and the characters. We'll go and pop over quickly and look at some of the characters, and I'll try and point out a couple of them. And we are going to be looking at a few in particular. Now, Vivian Rock here, if you can see her there, is played by Emma Thompson, who I believe is an Oscar winning actress. And it is a very, very big name within the movie and TV world. But she kind of plays this sort of entrepreneur, very outspoken, very bold, self-made individual that somehow runs for politics, or finds herself in politics, and ends up running for Prime Minister, which she eventually becomes. And she's almost a little bit of a female personification of a particular orange comb-overed individual that runs the Oval Office at contemporary times, and will possibly be running it for the next 4 years. And in particular, a little teaser here, this show come out in 2019. It did actually predict Donald Trump's second term, and without, I don't know how it is at all possible, just judging from what I'm seeing on my social media feed, that this Joe Biden that sniffs hair is ever going to stand a chance of winning the election. It would be bizarre, miraculous occurrence if that did take place. It seems like he was put in just to make sure that good old Donald got his second term. But she plays a very, very similar sort of individual to him. It has a lot of sort of influence in certain fields, and then finds herself in politics and ends up at the head of the game, where she then does kind of dissolve the rest of government and implements a very, very right-wing, draconian government, but kind of presents it as a very, very kind of, it's for our best. We're never stronger than ever. Now we're on our own. And she does introduce things like concentration camps, starts warding off neighborhoods, restricting anything that is of trade or free enterprise, and kind of really sort of turns the entire population into dependent on gig culture, things like Uber, Foodora, skip the dishes, stuff like that, as well as sort of drug testing and things for people. So she is, as I said, one of the main characters, but essentially it does revolve around this one family, the Lyons family. Now, Muriel Deacon is the grandmother of the Lyons family, who is a widower. Actually, she's not a widower, she's divorced. Her husband and her are separated separated and her husband's got another family. But it revolves around her and her immediate family, which are her sons primarily, and her daughters. Now, she has one son who's married to an accountant and has a bunch of, I think, 3 or 4 kids, one of which is of particular interest that we will be looking at a lot in here. She also has a homosexual son who does get married and then gets divorced, and then has an affair with an illegal immigrant. Very, very interesting stuff here. She also has a very radical activist daughter, Edith Lyons, there, who is one of the main protagonists in this series, who goes around the world fighting the good cause against giant corporate organizations that are polluting the world and damaging the environment, stuff like that. A little bit of a Greenpeace type activist, I guess, for want of a better description. But as I said, it takes place around this family of this one particular family over the period of 10 years, and it sees how their lives are affected by how society changes around. Now, I do like Muriel because she kind of does, bless her cotton socks, remind me very much of my dear departed grandmother now, and I actually picture my gran when I see this lady in this TV show, Muriel, who plays a wonderful part actually. But some of the characters are a little bit bizarre, one of which, this one here, Bethany, which we will be looking at quite a lot through this episode, because she's all about the transhumanism and kind of finds it very, very uncomfortable that she lives in her own body, breathing uncomfortable gassy air into her lungs, as well as another very, very particularly interesting child called Lincoln, who was born a boy, but by the end of this TV series in 2030 rolls around, he's living his life like a girl. But we will see a little bit more of that as we go on. So as I said, those are some of the cast and characters that make up this TV show. And as I said, it does seem to sort of, maybe you can't really say it's predicting these things because these things have yet to happen. But is it predicting us of some of the taste of things to come? I would strongly suggest quite possibly it is. And the BBC is a government funded organization and is known as the British Brainwashing Corporation in some certain fields of conspiracy theorists circles. But as I said, guys, it's very, very interesting. It kind of depicts the fall of banks. It introduces pretty much cashless society. It has transhumanism, transgenderism, non-binaryism. It seems that everybody in this happens to be gay, and it seems like the normal sort of, I say normal, who is or what is normal is hard to decipher or diagnose in this day and age. But sort of the more traditional, should I say, families that have, a husband and a wife and children seem to be struggling, while the sort of people that do seem to be engaging in gay relationships seem to be having a bit of a better time and more of a caring, warmer relationship than it does for the nuclear family that is depicted within this series. And in particular, there is the poor story of little Lincoln, that he starts his life as a brand new little baby boy at the start of first episode 1, and it kind of does sort of revolve around this family giving birth to this new child who happens to be of mixed race, and his mother is a I don't know how to say that word. You know what I'm trying to say, hopefully. But she's in a wheelchair. She's handicapped, and I guess she had a one-night stand with a Chinese guy, and then was left with a half Chinese baby boy that, over a period of 10 years, suddenly starts behaving, dressing, and acting just like a little girl. And guess what? He wears a lot of rainbows and unicorns throughout this series. So that's one thing that they do kind of highlight on as well, which is something we are seeing sort of being introduced or being very much a part of modern day society. The non-binary, the gender neutral individuals that are growing up in prepubescent schools. Before they get, to the age of puberty, these are when these sort of kids are being groomed and modeled into this sort of behavioral pattern of gender neutral. And again, part of the one world desired society would be that of one religion, one sex, one government, one currency, yada yada. It's all about one, 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 one. So they don't want the duality, and this is a little bit like why we saw the destruction of the two World Trade Centers at the start of this century, and they were replaced with the one World Trade Center. Make of that what you will. But anyway, guys, we've got a lot of stuff. Say a lot of stuff. There is a lot more stuff I could have put in to this episode about this particular TV series. I do suggest, if you do have the ability to watch it, and you've got 6 hours or so spare, or if you wanted to watch an episode a night over the period of week, you should really do so, because it's very, very, very interesting, and could be a little bit scary. But it does, as I say, take period over 2019 to 2030, and we've already mentioned 2030 is where we are being led to in terms of United Nations, the unified Nazis, the Fourth Reich's desired one world order. And is this TV show kind of depicting how the next 10 years is gonna look like as we slowly get there? So as I say, guys, I'll let you get back to a few more clips now, and we'll come back and round this up after you've done so.
Calling him Lincoln. Congratulations, great-grandmother. These people are refugees, which means they're allowed to seek asylum. My name is Victor Goria.
I'm transhuman. I'm going to escape this thing and become digital.
Come back to bed.
You have sex with your robot. America, they fired a nuclear missile. What happens now? Where are we going? When's it ever going to stop?
President Pence has defied the United Nations.
But we're making it worse. The more we impose sanctions, the more America swings to the right.
Okay, Putin, president for life. Xi Jinping, president for life. And now Pence, just a puppet. Trump is still in charge. These old men are in power forever.
The bird population across Britain has fallen by 50%, because the insect population has fallen by 80%. That's 80% in 30 years.
It's a phenomenon that's been called town time.
The 2000s saw a huge move to work from home, but people at home basically eat and masturbate. So Town Time calls for a return to the office job Monday morning, 9 a.m.
It's on fire. They've could smash the system.
Britain stands alone in the world. To the west, America is the lone wolf. To the east, Europe is in flames. And beyond that, China is rising. And I want to tell you that in standing alone, this country has never been more magnificent.
But what is Vivrook actually doing? Can anyone tell me?
I promise you freedom and the ability to enjoy that freedom.
She just says anything.
An emboldened society with the strength to enable itself.
I mean, what?
I'm only just beginning.
But what does she want? What does the four-star party actually want?
I look ahead and see glories.
Listen to me, please. Ask her about the disappeared. Ask her about the people who disappeared. Can't you see what she's doing? She's lying to you.
Finally, ladies and gentlemen, let me wish you a very Merry Christmas.
Is a little article on the show that come out on the 14th of May 2019. So this show's been around a couple of years now, which is even more stark contrast to some of the content that is featured in it. But don't worry, guys, we're not going to read every last word of this. I'm aware that I did just put out a 4.5 hour presentation on MK Ultra and Monarch programming, which did have an awful lot of reading in words and stuff to look at that may have put a lot of folks off. But don't let it put you off, guys, because there's some very, very important information in there that I feel might explain what's going on in today's society. But the reason I kind of pointed this, I'm kind of trying to give you something to visually look at rather than just the same picture and hearing me rambling on. But it gives a little bit of sort of guidelines and tells you a little bit about the sort of content of the show without me getting too sort of off in tangents and forgetting what I was meant to be saying about this particular show. So you say this individual, Vivian Rock, she kind of represents an awful lot of sort of contemporary politicians, I guess. And you know, I mentioned earlier she's sort of a little bit of the personification or female personification of Donald Trump, but there's a couple of other characters that are sort of mixed in there as well. As I said, she's sort of a representation of a lot of contemporary individuals in political or government positions. But forget tomorrow. What does the year 2024 hold? What will the world be like in 5 years or in a decade? When will the unrest that's been circling political, societal, and cultural spheres finally come to a head, and what shape will it take? Will Snapchat still be a thing? Do sex robots have legs? And where do virtual assistants like Alexa go next? These are all bum-clenching tense questions to ponder. Bum clenching is like, you know, when you feel you're going to shit your pants, you have to sort of squeeze your ring piece tight to stop your turds flopping out involuntary. But anyway, what could be catapulted into the near future to get a fictional peek how things might pan out? And again, I'll tell you many times, guys, fiction prepares and programs our reality, we should say, and that is why we're trying to decode fiction to help understand our reality here. And where or not we are being led, is that being contained within this particular piece of fiction years and years that we are currently decoding. So I hope you are still paying attention and haven't stopped watching and started finding something else to watch. But anyway, we're not talking about Hunger Games, Handmaid's Tale, or even Blade Runner style dystopian tragedy. No, consider years and years a disarming but hopeful window into an entirely plausible, and this is why I pointed out this particular article, because it says entirely plausible, and I'm kind of saying and suggesting the same, that this could very well present our plausible future that they are going to be leading us to, and sort of giving us snippets of future technology as well as desired social behaviors. And as I said, it takes period over 15 years, although it doesn't really, you never really see sort of what happens beyond 2030, to be quite honest. It kind of quickly fast tracks for a few minutes, but then it backs up on itself, if that makes sense. Watch this TV series, final episode, you'll realise what I mean. But the BBC's compulsive new drama will meet the lions, as we already have in the present day. Border negotiations with Ireland are ongoing. Donald Trump is still banging on about building a wall, and Rosie Ruth Medale, the youngest lion's sibling, is being driven to hospital by one of her neighbours. So they kind of crossed the real life into the fiction there. So you know, they kind of did use a little bit of contemporary news when that show started within the realms of the fiction, and that adds the reality to it. So when you're watching the fiction, oh my god, that's going on in real life right now. But anyway, as it flips to the fiction, we see the lady that was in the wheelchair gives birth to poor little Lincoln, the boy that is then later raised as a girl. But this is how it all starts off, and these are some of the events that are going on at the time that the series started, that were also going on in real time, if that makes any sense to you. Hopefully it does. But anyway, this is a little bit about some of the characters there. But this is what I wanted to point out, and again, you can stop and pause if you want to read that part there. But moving down here, so on the telly, and that is what the UK people or English people called television or TV, the telly, a relatively unknown entrepreneur called Vivian Rook is on some sort of political debate show, telling a panel audience that she doesn't give a fuck about Palestine. This is kind of where she's very outspoken, a little bit kind of like Trump was before he come to power, and kind of how he gained his popularity. But she doesn't give a fuck about Palestine or Israel, and she kind of puts her priorities as she presents her priorities as though they are for the people, and she wants things that really common people have issues with, rather than what the big industry and corporations and corrupt bankers and government officials have issues with. It's about the common man, and that's kind of how she rises to power, by kind of saying all the things that the common man wants to hear. But as I said, she goes on about picking up trash off the streets, not parking on pavements, stuff that the public can relate to. And from the back of this talk show, she then forms her own political party. And she's no politician, like Donald Trump. He was never, ever, ever a politician. He was just a well-known entrepreneur. But there's the family sat around the internet, where they find out the news that not long after Donald Trump is signed into his second office, that he launches a nuclear strike upon China, who have built an artificial island that is possibly being used as a concentration camp, although they don't exactly let you know that. They tell you that it was 3D printed and it was being used to rehouse individuals. Now, rehousing is something that also featured in years after years, because eventually, once this Vivian Rock does rise to power, in her kind of campaign slogan posters, it sort of spells out Viv, but the way it kind of looks like V and V together look like a W, and the I looks like a 1, so it's almost like one world. And she is very, very, very purple. Red and blue combined make purple. The red and the blue are symbols of the left and the right wing. Mix them together, you would have one purple color, one purple government, right? So that's kind of what she is representing. The Viv, the 1, it looks very much like W1. But anyway, the firstborn son is born not long after this nuclear strike occurs. They're all very, very worried about what's going to happen, but nothing really happens. No nuclear war comes. It just was a sort of one-off nuclear grooming. But there is a system within the households that features a little bit like Alexa, which is called Signor, which we're going to bring there. Now, Signor, and what it doesn't actually sort of suggest or say this definitely within the series, but you kind of get the impression that this Vivian Rook individual somehow has access to what this Signor, which is very much like Alexa, is listening to, because there's a point in one of the episodes where she's doing a political bait, and she's saying things in the political debate where various characters that are watching, of the family that are watching at the same time, are like, oh my god, you said that just the other day, and Dad, you said that last Tuesday. So it kind of gives the impression that Signor is listening to you and is giving in the government, and in particular the politicians, or maybe the highest bidder, because that's how data collection works. They sell that data to the highest bidder at an auction. So maybe this Vivian, the entrepreneur, paid money for the data that had been collected by the Signor software, right? And was using that then in order to target and create the desired speeches that could then have the reaction that she desired in order to get these people out to go and vote for her. And you've seen already, the Vision Snapchat filter and stuff like that, where the teenage girl was wearing a mask that projects Snapchat filters, basically. But anyway, it goes kind of on and on, and we see also as the decades and as the years fly by throughout the decade, we see and hear things about how the weather is changing, and how the UK experiences something like 130 days of rain and flooding and mass flooding in homelessness as a result of it, and people are sort of displaced. And there's also a little bit of a refugee and migrant in issues as well, with illegal immigrants trying to sort of flee Europe, where similar stuff is going on to what we're seeing in the fiction here. But it kind of also implies that the sort of immigrant population or immigrant problem requires some kind of solution, problem, reaction, solution, people. And they start having detention type FEMA camps that are sort of declassified. Nobody really knows about them, but people do end up getting taken there, and in particular immigrants. But sooner or later, over a period of time, it comes like, the immigrants aren't really our problem. Now we have lots of homelessness as a result of the flooding and the weather, and people also are finding themselves homeless because the banking system pretty much overnight collapses and everybody loses all their life savings. And the government does insure people up to £85,000, which all of a sudden, once the banks are broken, that's all anybody has to live on. And you see like pandemonium, people trying to get their money from the banks, chaos in the streets, the policemen that were paid to sort of kind of guard the banks from the rioters, and people angry that their bank accounts have been shut. Suddenly, when the realization that their banks are locked up in that in the same bank, when their money is locked up in the same bank, they then turn on it and chaos ensues. But as a result of what could possibly be weather modification and weather manipulation, again, they don't exactly let you know, but there is some strong suggestion that is what's going on. Once they've kind of crippled and crushed the spirits of everyone, many people were displaced. They then force a bill where if you have an empty bedroom, if you have 2 empty bedrooms in your house, then you are forced to take in homeland refugees. These are people who've been displaced from their homes as a result of flooding, or the fact that they've got no money and the banks have collapsed and so forth. As a result of this, the towns and cities that depended on maybe bank funding and stuff just ceased to exist. So people were forced to take in strangers if they have empty properties, and those that don't have anywhere to go somehow end up into rehousing. Now, once in rehousing, anybody with some kind of criminal record or who's been a little bit dissident or maybe speaks out against this draconian totalitarian fascist government suddenly becomes the disappeared. And the disappeared are dissidents and sort of illegal immigrant refugee asylum seekers that get taken off to the concentration camps and end up disappearing. There's also a mention of a virus, although the virus doesn't kind of start at the very beginning of the series. It is some months, some years into our future, where the monkey flu starts contaminating people, and social distancing and all that kind of stuff is implemented. And again, this show come out in 2019, before Wuhan, before the pandemic that we are in, the lockdowns that we are now living in. So although it didn't sort of start in 2020 or 2019 as it did in real time, they do depict the fact that there was a pandemic, a monkey virus, and many people in there are trying to throw some funding towards sorting the virus out, although it doesn't exactly take priority over the story. It's just mentioned, and then sort of in the latter part of the last sort of 2 or 3 episodes, you kind of do see people talking about, you don't have cold or sniffles, stay away if you do, that kind of social distancing stuff that we are hearing about now. And this is the point that I'm saying. It come out in 2019. It predicted Trump's second term, which is pretty much a foregone conclusion in my opinion. Not that I support the guy or any politician for that matter. I just can't really see how Trump is going to lose this election. And it also depicted and predicted a virus that required social distancing and also brought a little bit of societal standstill. So this is why I'm telling you guys, years and years, you really do need to check it out. Actually, you don't need to check it out. You only have a few primal needs that do need to be seen to in order to keep you alive. However, this would be a choice, and if you do feel like choosing something to watch and entertain yourself with, as well as possibly prepare yourself for a plausible, impossible future to come for the next 10 years as they lead us in towards 2030, and maybe the one world order will just creep up on us and we won't even notice it's here, a little bit kind of like it is depicted within here. And there was something you may or may not notice, that all these kind of politicians never ever stood down from office and just continued to rule indefinitely. And once all banks and all this other stuff is sort of dissolved, then we do kind of see a very, very big brother kind of state run utopia, dystopia rather. But anyway, guys, it is a very, very, very fascinating series, very enjoyable as well, and very, very, very well made. The BBC do sometimes do a good job at putting together some of their programming. And is this saturated in programming? I'm going to say yes, it is, guys. Please don't take my work for it. If you do have time and feel like you want to watch it, do watch it, but hopefully maybe this episode of Fiction Decoded will give you enough information for you to draw your own conclusion that there is a lot of predictive and programmatic material contained within this particular piece of fiction that we are decoding.
Sweetheart, you don't need to make an appointment with me. I'm here, right in front of you.
I'm sorry, Mummy.
Seriously though, I mean, I might have to start limiting filter time. Just talk to me properly.
Sorry, pretty Mummy.
Do you want me to take that off you?
Don't. No, it's all right.
No, it's not. It's not all right. I'm here in front of you. If you want to talk to us, you don't need to make an appointment. Why don't you turn off that filter so we can see you properly? Sorry.
I'm your guardian's fault, so you can't interrupt, not for anything.
Nah, Chris Pratt is such a hot daddy. He could have me any day. Bye.
13 years old. Yes, okay, fine. Saturday.
I just want you to know. I love you, Mummy and Daddy.
I know you do, sweetheart. And I'm going to ask you to take the filter off. Will you do that for me?
I think I've been uncomfortable for a very long time.
We know.
I've been thinking ever since I was born that I don't belong in this body. I think I'm trans.
And if it turns out that we've got a lovely son instead of a lovely daughter, then we'll be happy.
No, I'm not transsexual.
Oh,
Is that not the word now?
but you said trans.
What do we call you then?
I'm not transsexual. I'm transhuman.
When I went to university, they said accountancy was a job for life. But now, thanks to your lot, artificial intelligence can do my job in 1 second flat.
Will you call me?
You mean telephone?
Yes,
Where?
now.
Because sitting right here.
This is why I wanted to have lunch. You just phone me. Now? Hello, Bethany speaking.
Hello?
Are you phoning for Bethany?
Yes. What are you doing?
This is Bethany. Can you hear me?
Well, you're right in front of me.
But can you hear me down the phone?
Oh, my God.
This is me. On the phone, I had it implanted. My hand is the phone. Abdominal implants. They charge themselves with motion like a self-winding watch. And it's on the 22 network. I get signal across 95% of UK mainland, 98 by next year.
When I phoned you, it was ringing. You were ringing.
That's the speaker. So small.
I tried telling my mum. She doesn't understand. I mean, she won't understand. She refuses.
My mum and dad, they're like, haven't you grown out of that yet? I said, Mum, you should look online. You should see Richard Albright.
He's got a wafer in his head.
He can print his thoughts.
How far would you go, Beth? To be transhuman?
It's like, sometimes I think my lungs fill up with air and it goes in and out like some sort of bellows and it feels so thick. We could be so much better than this.
We could be free.
We could be flying. We should be wavelengths in the air.
You're okay. Are you okay?
I really am. I'm fine. Honestly, I swear I'm fine.
There. We can let that breathe for 10
You
minutes.
see? These are interaction nodes. If I use this finger, I can open all the doors at work, no ID. And if I just scan this in the shop, I can pay for anything up to £1,000. And look, Dad, Mom, I've just taken your photo. Send and send. It doesn't need the sound effect. I just add it back because it makes me laugh.
You promised me they wouldn't touch your eyes. What about your head?
Can't feel a thing. They inserted the tiniest wafer into my brain. And, oh my God, look at the result. Synced us up. No keyboard. I don't need a keyboard ever again.
And you did that by thinking.
It can't read my mind. Not yet, but the way in a neural pathway and micro movements in the retina to predict what I'm thinking.
But that is reading your mind.
She's at home. Lincoln's in school. Lee's not in school. Should be. Where is he? In the park. Don't tell Rosie. Gran's at home in the kitchen. What a surprise. Let's find Ruby. She's in a bar called the Marine Tide, and she's just bought a bottle of House White for £56.
Oh my God. How did it go, Beth? How are you? Did it work? Are you completely synced up now?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm with Mum and Dad, and I've just realised you're in trouble.
You should be in college.
56 quid.
For God's sake, Bethany!
That's amazing. A bit like spying. What if I didn't want you tracking me?
Well, that's a good question.
You're in my contacts. That's permission, according to the law.
But I still don't understand. You can run software like this from a keyboard. So why do you need the operation?
I'm trying to explain it in ways you can understand, but the connection is so much more. So when I combine all of that, it's joy. In my head, it is absolute joy.
A bit about Bethany Lyons, and as you can see, very interesting and quite bizarre, odd individual, though she was acting the part. I'm pretty sure that that part she was acting was designed to influence children into purchasing perhaps filter masks of their own, which I found incredibly disturbing. I don't know, that's probably the most disturbing thing I saw in this entire series, to be quite honest with you. I don't know why that stood out to me, but that little kind of filter mask is something that I found particularly disturbing. I'm only too certain that a whole bunch of tweens will see that and really wish that they had one, a little bit like back in 1985 when I watched Back to the Future. I really wanted a hoverboard. Where are they? Deliver us our hoverboards. It's 2020. We're 5 years past the delivery date on that particular piece of predictive programming. But in regards to why I find that most disturbing, because there is actually some syndrome now, an actual medical syndrome, where tweens, people just like Bethany at that age, and this was, you know, when you sort of saw her there with her filtered mask, and that was set in 2019, and in 2019, the syndrome known is, I think it's known as Snapchat filter syndrome, where teenagers are saving up money to get cosmetic surgery so that they look more like the Snapchat filters that they use to post their pictures. They hide behind filters, and you know, this is what we do on social media. Certainly a lot of ladies on Tinder, I'm pretty sure, are using filters to make their appearances so much more appealing, I guess. Now, not only the transhumanism in terms of her getting wired up to electronic devices, there's also the issue of the transhumanism of her maybe wanting to be part animal. If you saw, like, she had a dog face and a reindeer face and a little baby face, and again, the little baby face, imagine if you put a baby's face filter on an adult, and maybe integrated that within the bedroom, if you see what I'm saying. But also, as I said, the sort of animal integrating with animals. Now, another thing that is popular that you may or may not be aware of is a culture known as furries. And furries are sort of sexual fetish orientated people that like to dress up as kind of furry animals, teddy bears, or other kind of cutesy, you know, wildlife, I guess, kind of Disney type, Care Berry type things, as well as a group of individuals known as bronies. And these are males who kind of dress and act and behave like My Little Ponies. And there's another disturbing subculture of young people in particular that believe themselves to be something known as other kin, and other kin are individuals who believe they are the personification of cartoon characters. Yes, this is all real. I've given you all you need to know to put the information in a search bar of your own to look into that stuff. So this is her kind of part. She is the one that is there to advertise and promote the transhumanism in what incarnations that do accommodate themselves with that. But something of interest that she does befriend another little transhuman buddy there that you may have saw a chat to, another little black girl there, and they kind of have a bit of a weird relationship. They're not exactly like romantic, but they're not exactly platonic. They sort of kind of mess around a lot and sort of fool around, and then they both have this dream that they can run off and be transhuman together, and they get £10,000 worth of Bethany's savings, and they run off to have the operation done on the black market on a Russian cruise liner that just rolls into the docks of Liverpool, does some black market medical procedures, and then moves on, which goes disastrously wrong for her little buddy we never see of again after that. Spoiler alert, she doesn't die, she just gets a fucked up robotic eye that that means she can't see or function as a normal human being anymore. But still, little Bethany overcomes that particular transhumanism obstacle. She gets a cell phone implanted in her hands, which you saw that, and eventually she finds herself a job as a kind of data coder type person, where she is sort of designed to, she has a job where she and a whole host of other sort of programmers are paid to decode and decipher Russian influences. Make of that what you will. But eventually she kind of gets some kind of government grant and funding to go full transhuman. And that is where you saw her in the hospital, and she had all this sort of tracking, spyware software inserted into her person, and anybody that was on her contacts list was then considered, it wasn't considered spying if they were on her contact lists, and that's what the government were kind of passing on as the legality of it. But she became essentially a government-owned individual, and the government put electronic technology within her that kind of made her a human computer, where she could literally interact in sort of real time with human beings, while at the same time being submerged within the realms of the cyber world. So that was little Bethany's story, which was one of particular interest also because she also talks about similar to the TV series, or not the TV series, a streaming series, Upload, which was another one of those eye-opening, set in a not so distant future pieces of fiction that come out during the COVIDian time, when many people were being locked up and have more time on their hands and are more likely to binge watch this. And by binge watching, then you kind of immerse yourself totally within the realms of that programming. And I do binge watch myself, and it is sort of my the knowledge that I have on MK Ultra, Monarch, and all this kind of predictive programming, that I can kind of see that within the entertainment. And if you don't have those kind of that knowledge or understanding, then these will be your Monarch MK Ultra programming. And certainly for undeveloped minds, this is really where they are going to start being bombarded with this subliminal messaging. But as I said, she very much wants to be transhuman, and she has desires to literally be uploaded and be like air, microwaves, frequencies, just to be bouncing around rather than in a sentient. She'd be like a virtual sentience rather than have a body. She would just be data, and that is what she wants to aim to. And at the very, very end of the series, her sister, not her sister, Aunt Edith, actually does take the transcendence in Turk. She's going to die anyway, so before she dies, they try to upload all of her memories onto a hard disk so she can live forever. And that was very much what Upload was all about, that if you were terminally or about to die, then you could upload your memories and then go and live in a virtual heaven, I guess, is what they were sort of making it an equivalent to. But that was one of the more interesting characters that kind of stood out, in particular the transhumanism merging with technology was something that I thought was very, very much part of the programatics within this series, getting people normalized to that. There's many people, like maybe you and myself, that might find that a little bit disturbing and scary. Teenagers, they're going to be all up in that shit. So there you go. Keep an eye on what your kids may be researching or looking into. Maybe they might have seen this show and thought, my God, that'd be so cool to have one of those filters with the mask. Imagine being able to walk around like that all day, every day. And maybe they also might think, oh my God, imagine actually having the phone in my hand. That would be brilliant. So that was Bethany's story, and we're going to be moving on to little Lincoln, who is I don't know what to make. I feel so sorry for Lincoln, the fictitious Chinese orphan baby that grows up to be a girl, and it wasn't exactly his choice, as we will see as we go on.
They imprison children, she says. Apparently, if you haven't got a birth certificate, they determine your age by X-ray in your wrist. And then if your X-ray says you're 16, you're 16, even if you're 12. Oh, he's fast asleep. Good boy. Oh, little Lincoln.
Take Lincoln out. There's this Chinese ceramics thing on at the Whitworth, and then we could go see Toy Story Resurrection.
You know Woody gets burnt to death. I'm giving him nightmares. Right, behave. There's a good boy.
There, gorgeous. Okay, don't tell your mum and I'll give you 10 quid. Who's a beautiful girl? What do you want to be called?
Susie.
Okay, Susie. Off we go. Woo. If I say the word diamond, you say, I want to go to the toilet. Like, oh, what a pretty diamond.
I want to go to the toilet.
I'd love to have a diamond.
I want to go to the toilet.
Someone please buy me a diamond.
I want to go to the toilet.
I wish I had a diamond.
I want to go to the toilet.
Hey.
Careful, you two. Get slippery.
Okay.
Are we calling that a t-shirt? Are we calling that a dress?
I don't think it matters.
Oh, he looks beautiful.
Cards. I need ID cards to get in and out. Otherwise, you get disappeared. Don't start that again.
Thing is, Rosie, it's not exactly the right time, but Fran have asked me to move in.
Oh, that's nice. Right, rat's leaving a sinking ship. Anyone else?
What Rosie means to say is that's great news. Congratulations.
Come on. We're ready. It's okay. She's all right.
So that was the story of little Lincoln. I feel very sorry for. I don't know why. As you say, he was sort of like a unwanted, not necessarily an orphan child, but he didn't know his father, and he was a sort of product, I think, of a one-night stand. And eventually, while he lived as a few years of his life as a little boy, you've seen his mum give him a kiss on the cheek and saying, "Be a good boy." And then moments later, he was out with his crazy activist aunt, who was putting pigtails on him and grooming him to act as a little girl. And also, she was going on a little bit of a reconnaissance intel stealing a mission there for one of her activist friends, and she was using Lincoln as a sort of guise to go to Take Your Daughter Day at work. So she obtained some fake ID that she worked for this company, and then brought Lincoln, who she disguised as a little girl, into the office. And then from that point onward, little Lincoln remains sort of non-gender, I guess. He wears bows, and you can also see there his little purple bows, and that is a significant and symbolic color. It's a trigger color within Monarch programming to disassociate cognitive dissonance, and purple is the kind of sex kitten programming. Beta programming is used within sex kidding and beta programming within the Monarch methods. So you may see a lot of kind of sex kitten Monarch pop stars like Nicki Minaj wearing purple leopard skin cat suits with the cat ears and stuff like this. And here you can see little Lincoln's got a sort of purpley t-shirt in purple bunches. But anyway, At around 5 or 6 years of age, his aunt gets him to wear ribbons in his hair and starts to make him pretend he's a girl. And from that point on, he does remain very much pigtailed and pretending he is a girl. And when he's 10 years old, he almost looks like a Bangkok ladyboy sex trade employee. Certainly looks an awful lot older than the 10 years old that he was supposed to be when you seen him at the very, very end there, where Bethany picks him up off the stairs wearing his red dress and lipstick. And in when he's around about 7 or 8, and there were about 3 or 4 different, maybe 5 different Lincolns that they used for this particular series as they sort of watched him grow up. And he kind of was like, he featured in one, and you know, some of the narrative was, what's the world going to be like when you're older? More importantly, what are you going to be like when you're older, as a product of living in the societal world that is evolving and changing around you? And as I said, he kind of develops into a little girl. And something that was particularly disturbing to me, that I did kind of slow that little bit down of the clip, was his gay uncle found him beautiful, and he sort of said it in a very creepy way. Oh, he looks beautiful. Was that a little bit of kind of subliminals for the pedos there that may or may be watching? Something I did like point out a little while ago with regards to the Netflix Cuties series, that for a few weeks you couldn't escape people posting on social media how disturbing it was. People who appreciate and like that kind of material aren't publicizing it. They're not putting that on their social media and saying how great it is that 12-year-old girls are topless and stuff like that and behaving in a sexual manner. No, it's only people that are against it that are putting that out and speaking against how bad it is and how it shouldn't be made into programming. That sort of material is unacceptable, even in the deepest, darkest webs, yet alone sort of paid streaming subscription-based applications. And thus, by doing it, this created publicity for the show, and maybe people that were very unaware of Netflix QE and the disturbing content that was residing within that programming. There are minor attracted mentally, you know, that's their kind of preference. They like minors. Might be inclined to then go out and get a Netflix subscription and go and watch that all of their own, if you see what I'm saying. So was this little comment about the little boy in bunches looking beautiful, was that a little message to those people that may be that way inclined, to just sort of give them a little bit of gratuity? And there is an awful lot of almost soft core gay pornography within this series as well, and you kind of wonder, would they sort of included similar heterosexual themed scenes as they did, and was it so very much necessary to the plot to see almost a gay sex scene in the first 3 or 4 episodes, and very, very gratuitous? Although some of you ladies might enjoy watching 2 men getting it on, just as 2 guys might enjoy watching 2 girls getting on, or guys rather might enjoy watching 2 girls getting on. But nonetheless, you kind of don't really see anybody of actually, that's a lie. There's a guy who's having an affair, but you kind of don't really see anybody who's in a heterosexual relationship being very, very happy here. But that was little Lincoln. And as I said, he's probably the one I feel a little bit sorry for, because I don't think he really wanted to be a girl until he went out in his auntie, and then after she sort of kind of groomed him and programmed him to believe he was a girl for the afternoon. Poor little kid, he had an undeveloped mind. Decided to stay like that, and is, you know, again, the sort of message in here that maybe if you want to sort of breed your child that way, or raise your child into that way of thinking, or maybe you wanted to groom a child, maybe the aunt was showing you how you could indeed do it. So I don't know, let me know if you have any thoughts or comments on little Lincoln there. And again, you know, you could possibly go out to fucking China or Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, Tibet, and maybe adopt a young child and raise them however way you wanted to. Maybe the way that the aunt here decided to raise little Lincoln. Again, she wasn't even his mother. His mother just sort of went along with it, had no say in the matter. But there you go. That was Lincoln's little bit of a story that I thought was very, very interesting. In along with the transhumanism, one of the more disturbing parts of this particular series and piece of fiction. And was or not that programmatic? I think so. Let me know what your thoughts are.
Way far from all this. Just head for the horizon and gone. Imagine if I did.
You're the Prime Minister, you can do what you want.
They'd kill me.
Who would?
They would have me killed.
Got problems with our own population. Floods and radiation, and we predict another 1 million homeless from coastal erosion within the next 5 years. We need more room. Simple as that. If we were to hand these camps over to you for governance, how would you cope?
Little problem. Jane, excuse me. Tiny detail. Not everyone approves of the word camps.
I'm sorry? Facilities.
Camps have negative connotations.
But the words, let's stare them down, the word concentration simply means a concentration of anything. You could fill a camp full of oranges, it'd be a concentration camp by dint of the oranges being concentrated. Simple as that one. Made it sound rather tasty.
Because the British found a way to empty those camps in South Africa all those years ago. They simply let nature take its course. The camps were crowded, they were pestilent, they were noxious, they were rife with disease, which was, on the one hand, regrettable, and on the other hand, fitting. Because a natural selection process took place, and the population of the camps controlled itself. And let's say another word, because some people call this policy genocide. But have you ever heard of it? The camps, the Boers, the result? Have you? Have you read about it? Were you taught it? Do we remember it? We forget it because it worked.
Zone. What's a red zone?
Criminal? Your estate has been designated a criminal zone. Sorry.
It's the whole estate. Roxy Road, right round to the park, one big circle.
Stop the joyriders.
Well, they're not fencing us off to stop criminals. They're making us the criminals.
What time is it back at home? You're 9 hours ahead. It's just gone 2 o'clock in the afternoon here. Sunday dinner. You timed it perfectly, just like the old days. I'm on my way.
We're scaling down. Sorry, but life signs will start to fail in about 5 minutes.
I can't watch. It's okay.
So there you heard a little bit about the concentration camps and how they were going to be used to be housing its own citizens, not immigrants, not migrants or refugees, but its own citizens that had been displaced through natural disaster, be it via result of weather modification, and those that have been the victim of the collapse of the banking system, which is very, very disturbing, especially when we know you've heard rumours about FEMA camps and how they're now talking about quarantine COVID camps. Was this, or is this, our future? Concentration camps? Are they going to round up the dissidents like the disappeared that may be out protesting against the lockdown, or maybe Black Lives Matters, or maybe Antifa? Maybe all of these people were being funded and targeted, a little bit kind of how the Chinese communists and the Russian communists, when they were taking over countries, it wasn't sort of an overnight thing. They would infiltrate a country, and over a period of 20 years they would slowly introduce and plant their operatives into positions of power, while also using what's known as red squads, I believe they're called. And these would be controlled opposition that would go out and raise the spirits of dissidents and people who would be non-compliant or anti-governmental, and lead them to protesting on the streets. And then once the totalitarianism went full on, these people were then rounded up and eventually disappeared. And I'm pretty sure you've heard about people disappearing out in China already. And was the Hong Kong uprising, was that funded by the Chinese government in order to raise a movement of dissident that could then be eradicated and used as an enemy of the state and used as an example to others to fall in line and accord to the One World guidelines. So that's it, guys. We are going to wrap this up now. This was Fiction Decoded, years and years. A very, very interesting piece of fiction to come out in recent years. And as I said, come out in 1999, although I only recently watched it. It's been on sort of my watch list. I've been looking at a few programs to flag to watch that have raised some interest of particular stuff that is kind of taking place within the not so distant future. So I think years and years utopia and upload, if you did have to, or not say you did have to, or were looking for 3 particular pieces of fictional entertainment to keep you from going bored during lockdown and the winter months, I would strongly recommend you take the time to watch those. And if you can, maybe just watch my videos on them like you've watched this one. But anyway, guys, let's wrap it up. It is, as always, a ship video production for TSP TV. We'll hopefully catch you in another one. Until then, guys, keep it thrifty, and remember, as always, and most importantly, be excellent to each other. The world is going to shit rapidly. Take care, guys. See you next time.